This series is made possible by the generous donation of Stifel Financial and viewers like you. Thank you.
I'm Steve Monaghan. I am the Director of Emergency Services at the County of Nevada. And in that role, I work with our Office of Emergency Services staff in helping prepare the community for emergencies, respond to emergencies during them, and then recover after the fact. So during an emergency, we have what we call the Emergency Operations Center, which is a room, and it's staffed by people who have been trained in how to respond to an emergency. And this is located at the Root Center. And part of that structure, we call it incident command structure, is a communication division. So we have a number of public information officers that are trained in how to respond out and get information out to the community during a crisis, during an emergency. And they work on that and they take shifts. They have a number of different templates for press releases and how they want to do it. The county's been pretty proactive in working with our media partners. So we work with KVMR, which is staffed 24/7. That's our main emergency services radio station. So if we open the EOC at 1 in the morning, we'll call over to KVMR and let them have an update so people could start tuning into the radio right then and there. We also work with KNCO, Ubinet, the union, the other media partners in the community, and try to keep them all in the loop so they have the latest information as well. County also uses social media pretty heavily, so we have an Office of Emergency Services Twitter account and Facebook account that people can subscribe to and follow. And whenever we have an emergency or a crisis going on, we open the EOC. We also have information page on the county website where people can subscribe to alerts and get information, and they can always go there and find the information. So it's a multifaceted channel system. So when we open the Emergency Operations Center, we have what we call EOC Director. And typically that would be Captain Jeff Pettit, who's our OES manager. And he will be releasing the press releases. The staff that actually do that work could be a number of people that get that out. But Jeff is our main point of contact. So they should look at official county Office of Emergency Services press release during those kind of events. Because sometimes the press will have information that they hear on the street, but we will only release information that has been verified and confirmed. So sometimes we may be trailing the press a little bit, but we don't have to do retractions because we make sure what we put out is accurate and confirmed. So the main message we have from OES and the county is people have to be self-responsible and self-prepared, because the county, the sheriff, the fire departments, there's not enough resources in our community to take care of everybody who would need to be taken care of if they don't prepare themselves. So number one, especially for special needs people, is build that network. Who's going to help you get out, be prepared, etc. The other issue is situational awareness, in that if it's a red flag warning day, you should be on heightened alert. You should have your car ready to go. You should have your house prepped in case of a fire. You should be talking to your neighbors or those emergency contacts that you have in your network and making those plans that, hey, if this happens at 2 in the morning, I'm going to be giving you a call. Are you available to come get me? So the first thing is self-reliance. We need people to do that. The Public Health Department does work with a certain subset of special need individuals that are current customers of them, if you would say. in some of their programs, but there's certainly not enough resources for every special needs person in our community. That's why we partner with organizations like FREED to try to get people educated, self-prepared, and have that situational awareness so they're ready to respond when a crisis happens. It's education-based and trying to get that information out to them and getting FREED educating the first responders so they know what special needs people might want. Yeah. So for defensible space, there's two main ordinances in place. First one is from the state of California, and it's Public Resource Code 4291. And it maintains that 100-foot defensible space around a property. And they have different zones, 0, 1, 2, 3, and the recommendations for that. You can find out all that information out at wildfire.org or the county's new website, readynevadacounty.org. You'll find a lot of that, how to do defensible space around your property. So the first ordinance is the state of California. And that's just around your house within your property line, okay? Then the county has an ordinance, a hazard vegetation ordinance, and what it provides is it provides a little more beyond what the state ordinance does. And that is, let's say your house is 30 feet from your property line. You can't get that full 100 feet of defensible space on your property. You need to go 70 feet into the adjacent property. And that's what our ordinance does, is it helps property owners gain that additional space they need to get the full 100-foot defensible space around their house. The second thing the county ordinance does is it looks at private roads and it looks for maintaining that 10-foot clearance back from the road edge and up 15 feet, limb up the trees 15 feet, so our private roads in the county are more safe for evacuation routes. And those are the two pieces that really augment what the state ordinance does. So the state ordinance does have a fine system. It's about $120, maybe $150 for the second. The county ordinance is a little more aggressive, where first-time offenders, it could be $130, then it goes to about $350, then it goes to $700, and then it can go all the way up to $1,200 a day. So the county ordinance has a little more bite to it, and really we're not looking at it to fine people, we're looking at it to motivate compliance, because that's the impact that we want, are safe parcels around the county, and that's why we kind of beefed that up. Because if you have a $5,000 mitigation cost, a lot of property owners were just not responding to our inspection with a $150 fine. They'd rather pay the $150 fine. But with the new fine structure, it'll be more costly for them to not comply. So that's the motivation we're trying to drive, is compliance. And really, the pressure from neighbors is much greater than the pressure from the government, right? So when your neighbor says, "Hey, you're making my family unsafe," that's much more impactful than the county coming in and saying, "We're going to fine you $150." So that's why we really need neighbor-to-neighbor communications and neighbors holding each other accountable. Much more impactful. Plus, the county can only get to so many parcels. We have so many resources, staff to go out and do inspections. So that's why having those fire-safe communities where they're driving that neighborhood accountability is really important. So we support the Fire Safe Council as one of our main missions, and we've given them additional funding this year, additional $11,000, I believe, just to certify 10 more fire-wise communities to get that going, because we know that's the grassroots movement that's going to drive accountability and impact on the ground in the community. So it's very strategic for us to support those communities and the folks out there advocating for them. Right, and they get educated and trained, and the fire chiefs go out and do that, and the OES staff go out and do that. So everybody's supporting their efforts to be self-sufficient at that neighborhood level. So evacuation plans are very different for wildfire than they are for, say, a tsunami or a tornado, where people think, okay, what's the plan? Well, tsunami is get to high ground, and you can mark the streets, and you take the same path no matter what the tsunami event is. But wildfire is very different because you don't know where the fire starts, you don't know how intense it is, you don't know the fire behavior, which way is the wind blowing, how fast is it blowing, what is the density of the neighborhoods and the path of the fire. So there's all these different variables. So the fire professionals and the sheriff, who's responsible for conducting the evacuations, law enforcement, is very reluctant to put an evacuation route on paper and tell residents, this is the route you take. Because what's on paper, if they follow that, could be the exact or incorrect route, the most dangerous route for them to do, depending on what the current event is. So what we've tried to do in OES is we've worked with communities, with our fire districts, in preparing community evacuation safety plans. And we've created about a dozen of them for different communities, and they're all the defensible space, prepare yourself, get going. And we use the county Geographic Information Systems Department, and we create maps. And we show them like the 4 main arteries out of their community. And it's like, look at these 4 main roads, 4 main directions out of your community, and then be situationally aware during an event, listen to the media, sign up for Code Red, get those emergency alerts, and when you're told to evacuate, you'll be told which way to go at that time, which is appropriate for the current event. So that's what the county's trying to work on. You can't tell them which way to go because that could be leading them right into the fire if you tell them that beforehand, right? Because you don't know what the event's going to be. And what we tell people to do is take a Sunday, go out in your car, and take all the different routes out of your community. So you know those roads, because we're creatures of habit, and we drive the same route every day to and from work, to and from school, to and from the grocery store, because it's the most efficient, it's the easiest one. Well, you might have 3 other ways out of your neighborhood. You need to make sure you know what those are. So if they say, don't go out that common route, go out north, a different route, you know how to do that. That's what the public is. Now, on the first responder side, we have evacuation plans as how do we as an organization do an evacuation. It's independent of what the current event is or what the current route is. You're going to staff these intersections. This is the protocol for doing this. This is a protocol for calling public works. So we have a plan on how to respond to evacuation as an organization, and we're updating those plans as we speak. So we've identified, let's say, a major intersection in a high fire risk area. So we'll look at that intersection and say, what are the impacts if we're flowing this many vehicles through that intersection? We're going to need 1 or 2 officers there and some signage from Public Works. So that when we go to do an evacuation, it's like, oh, for intersection so-and-so, look it up, I'll assign 2 officers, get Public Works to come out with 100 cones or whatever. I think the main concern that we have is driving that personal responsibility to our citizens. And it's not that we're not there to help prepare people, but we can't do that for everybody in the community. And people have to be personally responsible for their property, for their families, for being prepared to take action if they are called to evacuate, and to be situationally aware that they're not just waiting for a phone call or a deputy to show up to knock on the door during a crisis, because the phone call might not come and the deputy might not come, because there's too many people and there's too many variables when we have a crisis that could cause both those things to not take place. So people have to be situationally aware. They have to be listening to the radio. If it's a red flag warning day, listen to your radio. You know, do you see planes flying over? Do you hear sirens? Do you have a network of neighbors who are also being situationally aware that will contact you and say, hey, we need to go? And if you don't feel safe, if you smell smoke, if you think something's going on, don't wait for the call. You know, pack up, go to a movie, you know, get out of your neighborhood, especially if you only have a single lane in and out route. You don't have two ways out and you're in a high risk area, maybe it's best to, you know, not be there. So. Well, that's like people want like a loudspeaker system. Well, a loudspeaker system works for a tsunami or a tornado because you have one route out where you get in the basement. Well, if you do a loudspeaker system and it's a wildfire, what do? What does that mean? Does that mean get in your car and leave? Does that mean, okay, you're on alert, wait for the next message? And then what that's going to do is everybody's going to call 911, and that's going to overload our 911 dispatch center that doesn't have that kind of capacity, and that's going to cause more problems for the first responders that are trying to take care of the crisis and the people that really need to call 911. So it's much more complicated than what a lot of people think. So it's not, don't wait for the government to tell you what to do. You know, take personal responsibility. That's that message that I'm most concerned with people heeding. Our main partner is the Fire Safe Council for that community outreach, and they put on a lot of programs. Office of Emergency Services has been running our public awareness campaign, where we have been having these kind of town forums at the Root Center, and they've been very well attended, standing room only. Our first one had probably 400 people at it. We just did one in Truckee, and that had 300-400 people in it. So we're trying to run those. But you know, if you go to the readynevadacounty.org website, you should be able to find all the resources you need to be prepared and keep in touch on this topic.